Let's turn our Bibles to the book of 2 Timothy. I'll read from 2 Timothy chapter 4. Before I read, I have seen something interesting on TV. So, I believe we all know what a silverback gorilla is, right, Bazar? So, it's a male gorilla. And in every ape family, there's what they call the alpha male. That's the guy in the family. He's the one who mates with the females to reproduce his genes because he's bigger, he's stronger. But you don't just wake up and decide to be an alpha male. You have to fight yourself into that position. So this alpha male had fought itself into this position and carried it, they say, for about a decade or so. Now the younger apes had decided that they're going to kill this one so that they get into his position. So they stone the alpha male near death. And because they thought the alpha male was dead, then they move on with the rest of the family, thinking to themselves, I'll be the next alpha male. Now, at the break of dawn, the alpha male shows up bruised and battered, almost incapable of walking, just crawling on the floor. And then it notices that it is at the top of the mountain and the rest of the family is down below. And the narrator says, because the alpha male knew that it was bruised and it cannot fight, it stood where it was and made itself look bigger by stretching its arms and feet in order to intimidate the very same apes that tried to kill it. Now, the intimidation worked because the very same apes that thought they had killed him, seeing him standing that big and that tall, retracted because they thought now there is no way they can do worse than what they did to him yesterday. So if he survived the attack from yesterday, there is no way any of us can take him on. Now, where we are today, allow me to use the story of the ape as our foundation. That even though the ape was wounded and beaten near death, it still showed up. It still crawled itself up to a position where it can show up to protect its family. So today we're speaking on the subject, strong in faith. Because sometimes it is our body that is weary, but we need to keep being strong in faith. When we read in 2 Timothy chapter 4, I'll read from verse 6. In the New King James Version, it reads as follows. For I am already being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. Now, Paul writes to say, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. But he writes this being the same Paul who had continually been imprisoned for preaching the gospel. So when you read in the book of 2 Timothy from chapter number 1 all the way through, you realize it's a different tone that Paul writes in. He's more confident in the gospel than in himself because his body has been battered. His mind has been battered by being imprisoned for doing the right thing. The very thing God called him to do, that's the very thing he's being imprisoned for. But yet he still says, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. Now, allow me to make this statement this morning. To say life will not respect the fact that you and I are Christians. So things will happen to us. People will hurt us. People will gossip about us. People will go so far as trying to literally kill you or I. But may we bleed on our way to heaven. I understand that you are wounded, but can you bleed on your way to heaven? Because the problem we notice is that we have now become comfortable to say, I'm wounded, therefore I'm dropping the faith. I'm wounded, therefore God is not real. The very Christians I thought pray for me are gossiping about me, therefore I'm leaving the church. The very pastor I trusted to pray for me is abusing his wife, therefore the gospel loses its credibility. But allow me to say this morning, I understand that you're wounded. Can we bleed towards heaven? Because the cure for my wound is not the other direction, is towards heaven. Yes, you are hurt because you had expectations of the church that the church did not meet. Can you heal towards heaven? Because when you tell yourself that you will heal, but I'm leaving the church, you are healing in the wrong direction. And a day will come when the direction you and I have committed to taking will land us at a destination. So do not allow hurt, pain, scars, wounds, and rejection to cost you heaven. The Bible is clear, saints, that if your eye is giving you a problem, rather gouge it out to make it into heaven with one eye. If your leg is giving you a problem, chop it off and make it into heaven with one leg. Now, it is just but emphasizing the significance of us working our way towards heaven. So the challenge we will sit with is that we are with imperfect human beings. Okay. When you married your wife, she seemed perfect, no? On the day of the wedding, she was even more perfect. You have never thought a human being could be this perfect. Okay. So when you are standing there saying, till death do us part, in sickness and in health, you are talking to a perfect human being. Looked like an angel, no? Okay. And when she in turn responded to you and said, I do, in sickness and in health, sounded like an angel. Perfect. But I'm very certain you realized not so long after that day that this person is not perfect, this one. If I had a glimpse of this now, that I'm dealing with right now, I do not think that day would have happened. But because life is as such, it's a journey where we meet imperfect people. And the unfortunate thing about imperfect people is that they're faithful in being imperfect. They're not imperfect once a week. They are consistently imperfect. So there are fights you and I fight every single day. But Paul writes to say the ones he was fighting, he fought the good fight. Now, in you raising your children, there's a fight. Ne? There's a battle between the Xbox and your rules. Okay, saints, your children are not angels. Ne? So there's a challenge between, they heard you when you say you must wash the dishes. They heard you. Loud and clear. Okay. But now there's a challenge between the dishes and the Xbox. And because they are not you and they are imperfect, they chose the Xbox. And if you are lucky enough to have a black parent, né, which I believe most of us have, if you have a black mother, né, that black mother, you will not convince her why you chose the Xbox over the dishes. Saved as she is, prayerful as she is, you will not convince her why you did not wash the dishes. As a praying mother, did you fight the good fight with your child concerning the Xbox and the dishes? Because we are so accustomed to only classifying a fight when there's a demon attached. Ne? Like when people say we're hearing sounds on our roof at night, we pray. It's a fight. Okay. But the very thing going on in your house, you don't classify that one a fight. But all of them together, because Paul makes a statement that is encompassing of his entire life, to say, I have fought the good fight. Are you fighting a good fight in your marriage? Are you fighting a good fight as a parent with your child? Okay, maybe at work, you remember that evil manager? It's always on your case every Monday. That manager. Are you fighting a good fight with that manager? Because if you're not, then there's a pursuit you and I have, so that when we look at our lives all encompassing, we can say, I have fought a good fight. Paul doesn't write to say, I have won every fight I fought. He says, all encompassing as my life is, I have fought a good fight. Can you and I be this confident with our lives so far? If God was to tell you, okay, God forbid, if God was to tell you are dying tomorrow, né? This statement here, I have fought a good fight. How confident would you be on a scale of 1 to 10 to make this statement that I have fought a good fight? Because the question is not whether there were fights or not. Because like I said, all of us are fighting fights. But is it a good fight or is it not a good fight? Now we need to learn how to fight. Because Paul's statement is clear that there will be fights. So we need to learn how to fight. If he says a good fight, that means there is a bad fight. Can your Christian life not be branded bad fight? You see, in Tatachau, there's Christians, believers, who pray. Tongue talking, devil kicking. Who, when they walk into the office, people run. They're the very same people who are trusting to extend the gospel to other people. But when they walk into the office, people run. Not because the people running are evil. It's not because the Mzalwana is too holy when they walk in the radiance of the anointing. It's not that. It's because they have committed so much to fighting people that no one wants to deal with them anymore. There's marriages that struggle and end up in divorce because the people in the marriage are so committed to fighting one another that even when they're sitting at a counseling session, they are looking for ways how they're going to fight each other after this one. So while Tate Khaw is counseling, she's listening to say, I knew it. So when we get home, we're going to address that one. He's thinking the same thing. So it matters not the efforts that Ndlovu makes as a marriage counselor, because the people who are here are so committed to fighting bad that it doesn't matter what tools you give them. Now here's the gospel, Genesis to Revelations, with tools on how you and I should fight good. It says, pray for those who spitefully use you. Okay, since January, how many people have you prayed for who spitefully use you? Because the tools on how to fight are here. But we need to use them in order for them to be effective. He says, I've finished the race. And like I said, again, saints, I'll use this as an example. The bulk of charismatic churches have a conference at the beginning of the year. So we start well. We start with a convention, and then we fast, and then come February, we are kicking demons left, right, and center. There's no demon that can stand you. But before we get to December, for some reason, we need to keep fanning your fire that you had in January. But this cannot happen every year. At some point, I should be able to notice that I start well, but I struggle when we get to halfway through the year. So that when we meet to fellowship as believers, I'm able to say to you, you know, I start well. But when it gets around June and it's winter, this winter convention is a problem. How do I finish well? So that we journey with one another to finish well. Because this statement we read of, Paul writes when he's finishing. He says, I've come to the point of my departure. So he's realizing in himself that I've been arrested multiple times. This is the end of the line. And at this point, I need to finish well. But he reflects to say, I have run the race. Now, here's a statement I would like for us to sit on. He says, I have kept the faith. Now, it blew my mind that the statement, I have kept the faith, comes after the statement, I have finished the race. Meaning, we can all finish, but not all of us will keep the faith. Okay, we can start a race of women who want to get married. At church, it's a race. We're praying every week for women who want to get married, prayer and fasting. We can end the year with the bulk of the women married. But there might be women amongst the ones who are married who did not keep the faith to trust God for their marriage, but who made means to make sure they're married. Paul says, I have kept the faith, after he says, I've finished the race. So keeping the faith, therefore, allow me to say, it is more important than the testimony that you have finished the race. Because you and I need to keep the faith for the entire distance of the journey. And that is the hard part to do, Ndlovu. Coming to church, connecting sound. You can do that your whole life. The challenge with keeping the faith is that I should still believe God can, even when it looks like He's not doing. Okay. Keeping the faith means, okay, I'll go back to the example of you marrying the angel, perfect angel, who turned out to be an agent. So, keeping the faith means my marriage is facing challenges now, but I still believe God can fix this. My child is doing drugs now, but I still believe God can fix this. I am still looking for work. I'm submitting CVs and no one is responding to me, but I still believe God will provide a job. I'm sick in my body, going to doctor's visits, but I still believe God will heal me. Now, faith comes with consistency. And that is why it is important for us to look at whether we kept the faith over and above whether we finished the race. Finishing the race is good and well, but we need to keep the faith. Now, allow me to say, wounded, we should still show up. Okay. Showing up to church should not be for the pastor. Because it's easy to show up for the man of God. Because you give him what he wants, and he will recognize you for what you gave him. The challenge with showing up for yourself is that you know yourself. You know you don't have the faith you profess to have. You know that you are still struggling with trusting God. You know that you're still struggling with one or two sins. Nah? However, you and I need to show up for ourselves. The Bible says, work out your salvation with trembling and fear. So when you show up here at church, it is to work out your salvation. Okay, saints, maybe it's just me. Have you ever been at church and you hear a powerful word and you think, yes, I know people who should have been here? This word, no. God is talking to me on behalf of. There's people I know who should be here for this word. Because we are so accustomed to working out other people's salvation that even when we show up for them, not for us. That is why when we're wounded, we then go hide in a corner. I don't know if you've been in a situation where saints were loving, happily married couple attending church. They started having troubles, then one of them stopped coming. And then they got divorced, then both of them stopped coming. And then years later, one of them comes back. And when you try to find out, so why, during that process, why did you need time away from church? Then there's always reasons to say, church people are this, church people are that. I spoke to so-and-so about this, and these news ended up with so-and-so, right? So, in other words, even during my divorce, I was willing to not show up for myself and work out my own salvation, and rather worship at the throne of the wound. And we don't see it that way, because showing up for yourself means you must show up as yourself. Okay. I don't know if you know, there's a makeup called 3D HD. I don't know if you've seen makeup where people don't look like themselves. But you know, man, I know this is label, but this one is a different label. this. So we get into the habit of showing up to church as a representative of ourselves. Because what then we do is, even when we are wounded and hurt, we show up at church smiling. Even when we are sick, we'd rather die at home than show up at church sick. And that becomes a problem because we cannot be a family of believers where people feel like they would rather die at home than come and fellowship here. So wounded, you must still show up. In pain, you must still show up. Bleeding, you must still show up. Hurt, you must still show up. Divorcing, you must still show up. Waiting for that miracle, you must still show up. There is a consistency about showing up for yourself where it relates to the things of God that gives you confidence in the God you're praying to. You need to continue showing up for yourself. That God said to me, "What do you have in your hand, Moses?" And all I have is a staff. But I'm still going to show up in front of the king. When I show up in front of the king and God says, "Throw it on the floor," what it changes into is in God's hands. But I'll show up for myself as Moses and stand in front of the king, stuttering as I am, uncertain of what is going to happen as I am, I'll still show up. And we cannot be a family of believers who have now outsourced showing up to the next person. So what then happens is that I don't pray because there's a team of intercessors at church. They will show up for me in prayer. I don't give because there's people with money at church. They will show up for me in offering. I don't serve because there's people who are saved to serve. So they will show up for me in serving. And I get so accustomed to being a believer who's just served that when life calls upon me, I don't know what to hold on to. Because if the intercessors are busy, then I'm dead. Because I'm not used to showing up for myself. Now, the challenge about showing up for yourself is that sometimes the results don't show as quick as you'd like. There's ladies at church here. Once again, saints, I won't mention names, who have started diets. Started diets. They changed their meals. They stopped eating other things. They were eating the greener side of life. But when you look at them, you're like, no, man. This diet of yours, how does it work? Because what you expected was that when you are on this diet, you'll get this result. But it seems like when I'm an opposite direction of the results. And the problem is not the diet. The problem is showing up for myself. Because it doesn't matter how many green salads I eat when I supplement them with a McDonald's. So what then happens is I show up for myself in prayer. But then I don't live the lifestyle. And God cannot be fooled. Okay, let me repeat the statement. I show up for myself at church, but I remain evil with my intentions. So you always see me at church, but the quality of my Christian life looks like it's going the opposite direction. But it's because there's a saying they say, you cannot out-exercise a bad diet. So it doesn't matter how bad how many times you hit the road? Ndlovu is almost 80, né? And he walks every day. Every day he walks. There are far younger people, 76 in Ndlovu. But there are far younger people than Ndlovu who have never walked 2 kilometers. And we walked as a church just 2 weeks ago. So we saw. Okay. And when we were walking, we saw ladies selling magwinya next to the road while we were walking. And I can guarantee you now, I've never smelled such delicious magwinya in my life while I was walking. And the problem was not the lady selling magwinya. The problem is me, who is walking while equally committed to this smell. And what we do then, we walk with the Lord, and the devil does what the devil does next to the road. But even though we claim to be committed with the journey, we still stop by the devil and say, Ishmael, can I have just 2 magwinya? It won't make a difference. So we kept walking, we got to church. We finished the race. The challenge was keeping the faith. Because, yes, you've been going to gym the whole year. Saints, okay. Don't tell other people I told you, ne? There's people who gym the whole year, ne? They actually gym, because you see pictures of them at the gym. But no, man. I don't know what kind of gym they do. Because the expected results of going to the gym are not showing. And you shall know them by their fruits. So you and I cannot be coming to church every Sunday the whole year, yet our fruits speak counter to what we profess. So we need to be strong with this pillar of faith. Because there is a day where the race ends. And it should not end with you and I having a basket full of bad fruits. Before we close, so you can buy a healthy basket of fruits. If you keep them in the basket, they are going to rot. It's not the devil, ne? Okay. In your house, if you buy a basket of fruits, and when I come next month, your basket of fruits is rotten. And when I walk into your house, you say, my brother, I need us to pray for this basket. There's a demonic attack. I feel in my spirit that there's an unfamiliar spirit in this house that's attacking this basket. I would be shocked because the fruits are doing what fruits that are not eaten are supposed to do. So if the fruits are not eaten, they don't need an external source to rot. Now there's fruits of the Spirit here. That's the problem we're sitting with. There's fruits of the Spirit that we don't share with anyone. No one knows that you're patient. No one knows that you're kind. No one knows that you're loving. Maybe that is why your love is toxic. Because you only share it when it's rotten. Maybe that is why your kindness is hard to receive. Because you only share it when there's a reward. You are a believer with baskets full of fruits. Ne? We don't want them. The world doesn't want them. Because you hog them to yourself so long and only want to give them away when they're toxic. And here we read of a man who gave of his life and says, my life was offered as a drink offering. So what he received from the Lord, he gave. The same grace he received from the Lord, he extended. He didn't wait until it was toxic for him to extend it. Do not wait. We're having soup kitchen. Eh? People need food. Do not keep your money until they're dead and then give us money to go contribute for their funeral. Do not be so stingy with raising up your child in the ways of the Lord that now when they're dead, you are praying, wishing you had taught them the ways of the Lord. Teach them now. Give them the fruit now. Do not wait until your children are older to teach them how to love their father who divorced you. Teach them now. There's fruits of the Spirit, saints, that need to be enjoyed by other people and not only yourself. Ne? So, can our love not be toxic? Can our kindness not be toxic? Can our giving not be toxic? Because then it matters not the state in which you received it, but the state in which you're giving it. So when God gives you and I the fruit, is fresh to share. But we keep it hidden under the rock until when it's toxic. And we do the same with our gifts. When God gives us a gift, we keep it to ourselves so much that it starts becoming toxic. Ne? Now when you're at church serving, you're serving but you're bitter. You are serving, but we don't know what your problem is because you have a problem with everything. But because you kept it so long that you only want to share it when it is spoiled. Philippians chapter 3 verse 10, as we closed, Paul writes and says, in the Amplified, I'm reading, and this so that I may know him experientially, becoming more thoroughly acquainted with him, understanding the remarkable wonders of his person more completely. And in that same way, experience the power of his resurrection, which overflows actively in all believers. So there is a power of God that is active in believers. The fact that it is active does not mean you are using it. Because a power socket can be active. But if you don't plug anything on it, you won't be able to access the power. So I close by saying, we need to be strong in faith so that the faith we have in God informs the things we do with what God gives us. Because if I rely on myself, there are limits to me being human. But if I rely on God, if I have faith in God, there is things God can do that I cannot do. So I need to remain strong in faith. And I just wanted to encourage that as we are closing the year, can we close it strong in faith? As we're closing the year and you're going out to meet your non-believing family members, can you remain strong in faith? Can you remain strong in faith when there are ungodly things that you are tempted to do? Can your firm footing in faith be what keeps you? Because Paul writes clear to say, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. Now, you and I are not too saved for the challenges that come with it. You and I are not too saved for the challenges that come with being human. But can we at least commit to being faithful? We got this far by faith. Can we refuse to want to be sustained by works? Can we remain resolute in carrying on this journey by faith?